Welcome to Sora Law, where we explore the darkest corners of human experience and bring light to stories that demand to be told. Today, we dive into a mystery that has left an entire town baffled and a family in perpetual heartache. On a seemingly ordinary day in April 2016, 16-year-old Mekayla Harper disappeared from her small town in Yorkton, Saskatchewan. What started as a routine day quickly spiraled into a nightmare of unanswered questions, dead-end leads, and chilling discoveries. Mekayla's story is one of innocence lost and the shadows that lurk just beneath the surface of our everyday lives. Join us as we piece together the fragments of this haunting case, filled with unexpected twists and a depth of mystery that will keep you on edge until the very end. Mekayla Harper was the kind of girl who brought light into the lives of everyone she touched. Quiet and thoughtful, she was often described as an old soul, more content with a book or a walk in the woods than with the loud, boisterous activities of her peers. Her mother, Paula, spoke of her daughter with a mixture of pride and tenderness, recalling how Mekayla loved to take photographs of nature, capturing the beauty of the world around her. At just 16, Mekayla had already mapped out her future. She wanted to become a kindergarten teacher or perhaps a vet, drawn to both professions by her love for children and animals. April 12, 2016, started like any other day. Mekayla and her mother got ready together, chatting about the usual things: school, friends, and the plans they had for the upcoming weekend. Mekayla's grandmother dropped her off at Sacred Heart High School, a place she knew well and where she had always felt safe. But that day, something was different. Mekayla didn't attend her classes. She didn't show up for her violin rehearsal. By the time her grandmother arrived to pick her up, Mekayla was nowhere to be found. The day quickly turned from routine to alarming when Mekayla's grandmother reported that she wasn't at the school. Paula, who was at work, immediately knew something was wrong. "You raise a kid from the time they're born, you know them so well, and for this to be the situation, I just knew instantly that something was amiss," she later recalled. By that evening, Mekayla was officially reported missing to the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, RCMP. The RCMP began their investigation by piecing together Mekayla's last known movements. Security footage from the school showed her entering the building at 8:08 a.m., but just 18 minutes later, she was recorded leaving through a back entrance. What followed was a series of sightings that painted a confusing picture. Mekayla was seen at a convenience store, then at a bank where she withdrew $55, and later at a pawn shop trying to have her ring assessed. The shop owner noted that she seemed quiet, neither upset nor in distress, but also strangely distant, as if her mind was elsewhere. From there, Mekayla's movements became even more erratic. She was spotted at a Tim Hortons, where she spent time on her phone, sending cryptic messages to her friends. One message to her friend Shelby read, "Hey, I need help," followed by another that said, "Never mind, I figured it out." These messages, though brief, suggested that Mekayla was in some sort of trouble, but what kind of trouble remained unclear. Mekayla's phone records showed a flurry of activity in the hours before her disappearance. She made multiple calls to the TD Bank customer service line and transferred a small amount of money between accounts. Her friends later told police that she had been talking about going away, possibly to Moose Jaw or Prince Albert, and mentioned meeting a boy named Josh. However, when investigators tried to track down this Josh, they hit a dead end. No one by that name seemed to be connected to Mekayla, and her friends' accounts of this mysterious boy were vague at best. As the investigation continued, more unsettling details came to light. Mekayla had been using various social media platforms to communicate with people outside her immediate circle, people her friends and family didn't know. One such contact was a man named Christopher from North Carolina, whom Mekayla had allegedly been messaging on Instagram. When questioned, Christopher claimed to have been helping Mekayla with issues related to self-harm, encouraging her to stay strong and find solace in her faith. He denied having any involvement in her disappearance and insisted he had never met her in person. The RCMP interviewed Christopher and conducted a search of his home, but found no evidence linking him to Mekayla's case. However, The discovery that Mekayla had been communicating with strangers online added a new, troubling dimension to the investigation. It became clear that Mekayla had been keeping secrets that might have played a role in her vanishing. In the days leading up to her disappearance, Mekayla had been acting strangely. Friends recalled that she seemed preoccupied, even anxious, and that she had mentioned feeling unhappy and wanting to leave town for a few days. Despite these signs, no one could have predicted that she would simply disappear. As days turned into weeks, the search for Mekayla intensified. The RCMP conducted extensive ground and air searches, scouring the woods around Yorkton and following up on every lead they received. But no matter how hard they looked, Mekayla remained elusive. The only clues were her scattered movements on the day she disappeared, movements that seemed to be leading her somewhere, but where? 3 weeks after Mekayla went missing, the RCMP handed her case over to the General Investigation Section, GIS, a unit that specializes in major crimes. The change in the investigation status reflected the growing concern that Mekayla's disappearance was more than just a runaway case. The GIS began by re-examining the timeline of Mekayla's last day, focusing on the hours between 10:45 a.m. and 11:55 a.m., a period during which her whereabouts were unknown. One witness claimed to have seen Mekayla at a bus depot, asking about departure times for buses to Regina. Another witness, a waitress at a nearby restaurant, reported seeing Mekayla sitting alone, eating quietly and keeping to herself. The RCMP found it odd that Mekayla hadn't purchased a bus ticket, despite asking about the schedule. They also noted that Mekayla had been seen using her phone throughout the morning, yet none of the calls she made were registered on her phone records, likely because she had been using apps like Snapchat, Instagram, and Kik, which don't leave the same digital footprint as traditional calls and texts. The more the investigators dug into Mekayla's digital life, the more questions arose. They discovered that she had been communicating with a variety of people online, many of whom were complete strangers. Some of these conversations were innocent enough, but others hinted at a darker side of the internet, one where young people are lured into dangerous situations by those who prey on their vulnerabilities. The RCMP also looked into the possibility that Mekayla had been planning to meet someone on the day she disappeared. The fact that she had withdrawn money, tried to pawn a ring, and was seen behaving unusually in public suggested that she might have been preparing for something: a meeting, a trip, or perhaps an escape. But if that was the case, who was she meeting, and why? As the months passed with no sign of Mekayla, various theories began to circulate. Some believed she had run away to start a new life, possibly with someone she met online. Others feared she had fallen victim to foul play, either at the hands of a predator she had encountered on the internet or someone closer to home. One theory that gained traction was that Mekayla had been lured into a human trafficking ring. The idea was not far-fetched. In recent years, there had been an increase in cases of young women being targeted by traffickers who use social media to find and groom their victims. Mekayla's interactions with strangers online, her sudden disappearance, and the lack of any concrete leads all seemed to fit this troubling pattern. However, there was no evidence to support this theory, and the RCMP were careful not to jump to conclusions. They continued to investigate all possibilities, keeping the lines of communication open with Mekayla's family and the public. They also monitored social media and online forums, hoping that someone somewhere might know something that could break the case wide open. For Paula Harper, the months following Mekayla's disappearance were a living nightmare. She threw herself into the search for her daughter, organizing fundraisers, distributing missing person posters, and reaching out to media outlets in the hopes of keeping Mekayla's story alive. But as time went on, the strain of not knowing what had happened to her daughter began to take its toll. Paula often spoke of the unbearable pain of living with the uncertainty, of not knowing if Mekayla was safe, alive, or suffering somewhere far from home. She took a leave of absence from work to focus entirely on the search, traveling across Canada to follow up on tips and sightings. She even ventured into Vancouver's downtown east side, an area known for its problems with substance abuse and homelessness, after a tip suggested Mekayla might have been seen there. Despite her efforts, Paula's search always ended in frustration. Every promising lead turned out to be a dead end, and every potential sighting was eventually ruled out. The only thing that kept Paula going was the hope that one day, she would find her daughter and bring her home. In August 2019, more than 3 years after Mekayla's disappearance, Paula received a call that reignited her hope. A man in Edmonton claimed to have spoken with a young woman who introduced herself as Mekayla outside a nightclub. The man described her as sweet and naive, qualities that matched Mekayla's personality. He hadn't realized she was a missing person until he saw a post about her on social media, which prompted him to contact the tip line. Paula immediately passed the information on to the RCMP, who followed up on the lead. They conducted searches and interviewed witnesses, but like so many other tips before it, this one led nowhere. The woman the man had spoken to was not Mekayla. The disappointment of yet another dead end weighed heavily on Paula, but she refused to give up. She continued to advocate for her daughter, pushing for changes in how missing persons cases are handled in Canada. She argued that the country needed a more coordinated approach, similar to the task forces used in the United States, to bring missing children home. By the time the 5-year anniversary of Mekayla's disappearance rolled around, the case had grown cold. The RCMP had followed up on over 1,000 tips, conducted countless interviews, and scoured thousands of pages of social media records, but they were no closer to finding Mekayla than they had been on the day she vanished. In a last-ditch effort to generate new leads, the RCMP partnered with the Washington State Patrol to feature Mekayla's face on semi-trailers that traveled across North America as part of the Homeward Bound program. The program, which aims to raise awareness for missing children, had seen some success in the past, and Paula hoped it might finally bring her daughter home. Despite these efforts, Mekayla remains missing. Her case is a painful reminder of the challenges that law enforcement faces in the digital age, where people can disappear with a click of a button and leave behind no trace. It's also a testament to the resilience of a mother who refuses to give up, no matter how hopeless the situation may seem. The disappearance of Mekayla Harper is a story that continues to haunt her family, her community, and the investigators who have spent years searching for answers. It's a case that highlights the importance of vigilance, both online and in our everyday lives, and the need for continued efforts to protect the most vulnerable among us. Here at Sora Law, we remain committed to telling the stories that need to be heard, shedding light on the mysteries that defy explanation. If this case has resonated with you, we encourage you to subscribe to our channel and join us in our mission to uncover the truth, one story at a time. Remember, the answers are out there, and together, we can help bring them to light.